This bulletin, printer cartridge resellers fight to maintain their revenue in a slowly shrinking market, thanks to Amazon and other better customer experiences. Hello, I'm David Gibbons and thanks for joining me. Our world continues to change. The very first iPhone was sold on June 29, 2007. And nothing remains the same anymore. It has been revealed printer cartridge resellers have not kept up with this world of technological change. Many have found themselves trapped in an analog world with a very weak business outlook. According to industry analyst Ian Elliott, they face a revenue decline over the next 4 years of up to 40%. Ian Elliott joins me. Greetings, Ian.
Hey, David, how are you?
Good, thank you. Look, Ian, the market for office products and equipment is very different today to what it was, say, 10 years ago. In fact, if anything, the pace of change has even accelerated over the last couple of years. So how are resellers being impacted?
Well, David, you're right. The way business is conducted today is very different. And one of the main reasons for this results from almost everyone having access to almost unlimited sources of information. You know, not too long ago, privileged people with access to information used to be able to charge others for it. But today, you know, access to information is basically free, with fewer and fewer willing to pay. However, the challenge has now become the ability to filter through all this content and to extract what's relevant, what's reliable, and what's useful. And this is not easy to do, and it's really not possible without the use of technology and a comprehensive understanding of how to use that technology. Most resellers don't have these skills, which kind of traps them in the analog world and means there's a kind of critical deficiency underlying, their weak business outlook. Unfortunately, for those unwilling to emerge from this analog world, they must be prepared to face something in the order of a 40% or so revenue decline over the next 4 years.
Ian, that's a devastating outlook for any business to deal with. So what are the main challenges facing resellers as they fight to maintain their revenue in a slowly shrinking market?
Well, the challenges are numerous, but essentially they boil down to their ability to reduce customer churn and to increase market share. And remember, without diversifying into other products, there's no way to increase the top line in a shrinking market other than to increase market share. So reducing churn and increasing customer acquisition really go hand in hand and are dependent on a compelling value proposition. A compelling value proposition in the digital world is very different from a value proposition in the old analog world. So for analog resellers, there's a frightening exposure to Amazon and other online competitors, and frankly, continuing to try and compete while relying solely on a transactional business model will, I think, in most cases, eventually fail. So to better understand the severity of the problem, we usually model an analog reseller's outlook with a net customer churn of around 6% a year. That's perhaps 10% churn in terms of customer loss and 4% offset with new customer acquisition. However, churn rates for resellers who don't adapt are likely to continue to increase, while their acquisition rates will probably fall. So if anything, this means a 40% revenue decrease that we use for our modeling purposes may in fact turn out to be a best case scenario.
Ian, you've used the word churn half a dozen times. I'm not really sure what you mean by that. Is this the percentage of customers who drop out or stop using services? What do you mean by churn?
Yeah, sorry, David. That's exactly what churn is. Every business owner should know his churn number, but many, especially those in smaller businesses, really don't. But yes, it's customer loss.
Okay, so reducing churn, as you call it, and increasing acquisition are obviously what's necessary for growing a business. Now, you've mentioned the need for a technology, and it's difficult to imagine a successful business not having a decent online presence, and that technology must underline that presence. Now, part of this must mean deploying a website that adds value. Really? Surely? It can't be as simple as all that, is it?
Well, no, David, it isn't. Many resellers have attempted to establish an online presence, but these attempts have almost always failed. And unfortunately, there are very few resellers in our industry that have a grasp of what's involved to successfully build an online presence. Most websites are poor quality and they fail to attract traffic. And more importantly, they fail to add value to the user's experience. And David, this is really the crux of the problem. I'd say close to 100% of resellers intuitively understand they need to have a website that performs for their business, but almost 100% also have no idea of how to go about achieving that goal. And because they don't know how to, they're unable to get off the starting line. They don't have the skills to know what to do, and they can't authenticate the proposals of others that may claim they do. So, but even then, the best website in the world with the best content, the best catalog of products, the best prices, and the best user experience, it'll never be found unless relevant traffic is carefully developed. And this takes time. There are no silver bullets, and long-term goals have to be established, which must then be carefully monitored for progress.
Ian, going back to Amazon for a moment, much has been said and written about their impact on the market for the office products and equipment channel. Clearly, most resellers have concerns about this threat. It seems these concerns are justified, but what strategies should resellers be deploying to overcome them?
Well, Amazon represents an immediate threat to the survival of independent resellers. There's really only so long a conventional customer relationship, by that I mean based solely on transactions, can survive when facing the really ever-increasing threat from Amazon and other emerging online companies. David, think of it this way. If I'm a reseller selling an item for $50, then Amazon can always sell it cheaper, and they may not care if they lose money doing so. The fact is, I simply cannot win that price war. Even if I buy a cheaper product to try and stay competitive, that cheaper product is already available somewhere else online and will always be available at a lower price than I'm able to sell it at. So, this downward spiral is compounded by the risk of making a mistake, chasing a lower cost that may result in an inferior product, which can then lead to the loss of a customer, of course. So while resellers have access to information about lower cost products, they don't always have access to authoritative information as to whether or not that product will meet its customers' requirements. So as we discussed earlier, the world has changed. Anybody can go online to spot buy at the lowest price. And for resellers to combat this, they have to embrace technology and wrap their proposals into more of a consultative approach. In so doing, they must educate their customers that buying at the lowest unit cost may not necessarily be the lowest cost solution.
Okay, Ian, but Amazon has traditionally been viewed as a B2C threat, which is also where most smaller resellers online initiatives have failed in the past. But what about Amazon and B2B?
Yes, David, this is a very important question. As we know, Amazon is making a major play into the B2B space, and they're making rapid progress, not just because of price, but also because they're leveraging technology to improve the overall customer experience. Resellers with a strong B2B presence who've historically shunned B2C e-commerce propositions and consequently may have viewed Amazon as less of a threat really need to quickly reevaluate.
Okay, so it's quite clear those independent resellers that continue to use the traditional transactional business model are fully exposed to the threat posed by Amazon and other large internet retailers. You seem quite certain the outlook looks very poor for them. So this begs the question, do technology solutions exist that can help this poor transactional reseller, as well as their typical customers, that could help mitigate this threat?
Well, I think providing this kind of solution, David, has been kind of the holy grail of our industry for many years now. And while products and services do exist that try and solve some of the problems, unfortunately, most don't solve the problems the resellers are now typically facing. So as a result, these services or platforms fail. They fail because they focus on individual problems rather than the full array of problems that resellers are now facing. They fail because resellers don't know how to use them. They fail because they're too expensive, and they also fail because they're generally not designed with the best interests of the reseller in mind. So, I'm here talking to you about this problem because I think I understand it from the reseller's perspective, also from the technology perspective, and also from the cost perspective. So yes, I do think the problem is solvable, but time is running out, and resellers need to act quickly. They must be prepared to learn new skills, and they must be prepared to accept it takes time, because as I've already said, there are no silver bullet overnight solutions. It takes an excellent product, and it takes a strong partnership between a technology provider and the reseller to make it work.
Now, we know the OEMs and larger dealers in the managed print space have deployed service-oriented programs that can help mitigate some of the threats facing transactional dealers. But we also know it's very difficult to convert a transactional business to a service business model. And many of the service-oriented offerings are simply not suitable for the typical profile of an independent reseller's customers. Now, if we accept this to be true, knowing that you can't force a square peg into a round hole, how can the dilemma of the weakness of the transaction-based business model be overcome?
Well, this is a big challenge. While managed services, including print, documents, and IT, have all been quite successful in certain segments of the economy, as you've said, these services are not usually well suited to smaller transactional businesses. So although this may be a simplification, I try to quantify the market with the explanation that of the 20 million or so businesses in America, less than 5% of them are likely to be receptive to the current service-oriented sales pitch, and that 90% of that 1 million, the 5%, they've already adopted various elements of service-based value propositions. The other 95%, which is 19 million businesses, who I'm saying are less well suited to the current service-oriented pitch because the provider's cost of acquisition and the customer's cost of implementation is just too high. So as a result, 95% of the potential market, and I mean that in terms of number of businesses, not revenue volume, is 90% undeveloped. So the key here is for the transactional resellers to be positioned to offer a more service-oriented proposition to this large undeveloped market that will then help them protect their customer base. However, this proposition must overcome the cost of acquisition, the cost of acquiring the customer, and the cost of implementation problems, while also it has to fit into their skill set to actually sell it. It's only if this can be accomplished will resellers place themselves in a better position to protect their business from the threat of Amazon and other emerging online companies.
Ian, you have spent a lot of time working in this industry, and I know that you have solutions in mind. For someone watching right now, what can they do to connect with you or to find solutions for their business?
Well, they can come visit our blog at enssolutions.com, and we've tried to provide a library of content to help educate the resellers of some of the issues they're facing, some of the major elements of what's happening as the world converts from analog to digital. And, we try to put it in the context of what a smaller independent reseller can afford and what he's really facing in terms of the technical challenges. Just something as simple as a website. Websites, I describe them as a rule-conforming website. Well, what are the rules? No one writes the rules down. You have to know them. And if you're going to publish a website starting from scratch and populate it with content that's meaningful and relevant and educational that people will take the time to read, you're probably looking at a cost of $40,000 to $50,000. So just to get from a really bad website to a good website is cost prohibitive for the type of businesses we're talking about. And then even once you've got it, if you don't know how to develop traffic to it, then that's a waste of money. So that's the kind of problem that we've been working to solve with the services and educational material that we've been providing. So we encourage people who are interested to visit our blog and contact us. Our contact details are all over our websites, and we're available to chat to resellers that are interested.
So it doesn't have to be all doom and gloom.
No, it doesn't have to be all doom and gloom, but it's a lot of challenges, no question about that.
Ian Elliott, thanks for joining me today.
Yes, good chatting, David. Thank you.
I've been speaking with Ian Elliott, who has more than 30 years' experience as an executive, operator and board member at various multinational corporations. And for all the latest office and imaging supplies updates, go to our website or grab a copy of our magazine published in English, Spanish, Chinese, Russian and Arabic. Thanks for keeping in touch. I'm David Gibbons.